Hello and welcome to this introduction to drawing for graphic design. My name is Lorenzo Madge and today I'm going to talk to you about some aspects of drawing that specifically relate to the discipline of graphic design. This first session is also appropriate for illustrators or if you're undecided about your specialism, so stick around. We're going to look at the importance of expanding your visual vocabulary and I'll be setting some simple tasks to help you engage with that process. Right, so let's get started. You're probably wondering how drawing for graphic design is different to any other kind of drawing. Well, in many ways it's not. Like most forms of drawing, it remains an immediate and personal way of expression, but in the case of graphic design, it's particularly important as a way of communicating with yourself in the process of developing ideas. Ultimately, with graphic design, the development of those expressive marks have the added purpose of communicating a message in an appropriate context to a specific target audience. Now that's a big ask, but graphic design is a big subject and it's based around problem solving. So what do we mean by problem solving? Well, in the context of graphic design, the problem might be how to communicate the purpose of an organisation or a political view, a product or a service, or even an instruction or event, usually to a particular audience or specific demographic. Now, understanding the target demographic we're talking to is important because how we visually interpret a message or an idea to a 10-year-old will probably be quite different to how we communicate that same idea to somebody who's much more senior, who, to be fair, has got a whole different perspective on life. And the same is true of cross-cultural differences. So a key skill would be to develop different ways to visually interpret messages and meanings for different applications or audiences. And in order to do that, we need a visual vocabulary that is literally the visual parallel to a spoken language. Now that's what we mean by visual language. Well, I know what you're thinking. Why would you use hand drawing at all when we've got software? Well, experience has taught me this. One, hand drawing makes you look in more depth at the stuff around you. And it makes you think about how to interpret things from an individual perspective. It encourages spatial imagination and makes composition more fluid. Hand drawing is a more rapid process. You can get a whole sheet of ideas on paper in the same time it takes to generate one on screen. And it focuses more on the ideas and concepts and less on the technology. Drawings aren't just the end products, they're part of a visual thought process that express our physical interaction and mental understanding of our environments, context and behaviour. The drawings you make might not necessarily be the final product and is likely to form the basis of a photo shoot or packaging or screen-based application as they are to be standalone illustrations. As a graphic designer, what you're aiming to do is to use that personal process to provide ideas with enough information to be evaluated and developed with the appropriate methods. And that might be software, but it might be craft-based. Remember, this isn't just sketching we're talking about, this is design drawing. It's an integral part of the development process. Why not use a tablet? Same thing, right? Well, here's my argument. The benefit of using paper is that you can see and change multiple images at the same time. You can cross-compare easily by laying image sheets out in front of you and it gives you a better understanding of where the successful development thread is going or where it came from. What I'm suggesting is that critical awareness, comparisons and evaluation are faster, far more flexible and more easily understood, and that cross-fertilisation or hybriding of ideas becomes more obvious on paper. Now listen, it's not that software isn't great, it's fantastic, we know that, but it can get in the way of initial ideation and the concept building is really important. Sure, if you know what's capable in software and want to exploit that and put them in your drawn ideas, then that's fine, but the actual software process comes later. The simpler the message, the less likelihood of misinterpretation. Aspects of contemporary society where consumerism and community play a major part in the lives of most people needs a visual language as much as a linguistic one to communicate the crazy massive information we produce. It's been said, and I don't know how true this is, that we're now exposed to more man-made images in one day than the average person in the 19th century might have seen in a lifetime. And that makes sense to me, and it's a good reason to keep things simple. More on that later. But for now, let's look at an exercise that gets you thinking about the meaning of the marks and compositions you make. It's important to have fun with the drawing process and enjoy playing with the composition and trying new things. It's a way of expanding your knowledge and experience without worrying too much about breaking anything. You can potentially learn so much more when things don't go as expected, so loosen up and have some fun. Choose just one word, shoe or bicycle. Keep it on your head and don't change it. This project's going to be about training yourself to process the visual information you find about a specific word into the simplest of components and into a composition that says something about your word without being literal. So, for example, if my word was dog, I should avoid literally drawing an actual dog, but instead concentrate on making abstractions or association that triggers a link to a dog. First, I need to generate some options, and a good way to do that is with a list. Here's an example of what I mean about options based on my word dog. I've put categories along the top with some related content below, and this gives me a range of keywords to interpret into images or compositions. Then I do a bit of visual research based on the words from my table to feed the drawing process. Now, it's okay to use magazines, Google or Pinterest to accumulate visual reference, but don't spend too long researching. Do enough to give yourself a good start. 20 to 30 minutes should do it. You can always come back for more if you get stuck. This is what I need you to do. On an A3 landscape sheet of paper, draw 3 rows of 4 boxes 7 cm square, leaving approximately a 2 cm gutter between them. You need space so that the drawings don't interfere with each other. Your master template should look something like this. Don't draw on the sheet, but use it as a master to trace off the squares so you don't have to measure each time you start a new sheet. Using different weights of black pen and markers, quickly work to fill the boxes with ideas, but don't get obsessive about trying to stick perfectly inside the box. Think tidy but expressive. You should aim to fill 2 or 3 design sheets, plus a final sheet to rework your best ideas and make them even better. Your sheet should look something like this. Congratulations, you've started to think laterally. The links to your word might not be immediately obvious, but that's part of the fun. Test it out on somebody you know. Hopefully there'll be a eureka moment where the penny drops and they make the connection. One last thing. Don't fall into the trap of playing safe and producing what you're comfortable with. If you're going to learn new skills and expand your visual vocabulary, then your work needs to be driven by ideas, not by the limitations of your drawing ability. In any case, if an idea is worth pursuing, you can always revisit it, do some more research and clean it up later. You do need some consistency across the work, because when you come to evaluate what works best, you need to be sure your choice is based on the quality of the idea rather than because it's that nicest drawing. It's challenging, but it's a great way to train yourself to be a better designer. You've been listening to me, Lorenzo Madge, and I've been a graphic design practitioner for 40 years and an educationalist for 20 of those. I've worked with photographers, illustrators, set designers, printers and more. And I don't know it all, I don't think anybody does. But if you've got some questions about drawing and graphic design, I'll do my best to provide you with a considered response. So thanks for listening and have some fun. Bye.